Hello and welcome to Accessibility in One Video. This is a cursory overview of the most important accessibility information you need to know when reviewing potential procurements at the University of Oregon. First, the requirements for procurement. All services and products that we purchase from vendors must be accessible, meaning they can be used by people with disabilities. This is both an official U of O policy and it's also necessary for legal compliance. Each department is responsible for ensuring the accessibility of their own services. Now, you're not in this alone. The ICT Accessibility Program is available and, in fact, wants to help you evaluate these services. More specifically, we want to help you evaluate these services early in the procurement process. If you've invested a lot of time and effort pursuing one very specific product and you request an accessibility review at the very end after it's already been through PCS, but we find out there are major barriers that make it non-viable, no one's going to be happy in that situation. So if there's any doubt, please request help early in the process. Okay, so on to the actual requirements. First up is color. Color alone cannot be the sole indicator of functionality. A common example of this is link text. Some services will identify links by making them blue, and that's fine. Links can be blue, but there also must be some other way of telling the user, hey, I'm a link. Otherwise, if you have partial or complete color blindness, you might not recognize that it's a link. This is commonly resolved by making links both blue and underlined. Graphics and charts, they follow similar rules. If you look at the two graphs on this slide, the top graph uses color alone to differentiate between data series, whereas the bottom graph also adds a line striation for a non-color based visual indicator. The top graph is not accessible and the bottom graph is. Oh, and for everything in this video, these examples are just that. They're examples. They're meant to demonstrate general principles. It's not just check for underlined link text and check for dashed lines and graphs. Color contrast. This usually applies to text over top of backgrounds, and it's a fancy way of saying light text should always be in front of dark backgrounds and dark text should always be in front of light backgrounds. Color contrast is the calculated ratio of the luminance between two colors, and a higher ratio is better. In practice, all this really means is go find a browser-based color contrast checker. WebAIM has a great one. Go to the link on this slide or Google WebAIM color contrast checker, plug in the colors of the product you're reviewing, and it will tell you if the elements on your page have sufficient contrast. This applies to images and videos too. If you're reviewing a product or service that has text in front of an image or a video, you have to be extra careful. Generally, if there isn't an overlay between the text and the background content, there's a high risk of insufficient color contrast. To touch briefly on fonts and typography, use easy-to-read fonts. This is a little bit subjective, but in general, look for large font sizes and sans serif fonts. Serifs are those little tick marks on letters. Times New Roman is a common serif font. Arial and Helvetica are common sans serif fonts. Now, serif fonts are okay in moderation. They're commonly used for headings, but most of the content should be sans serif. And avoid those overly stylized fonts like I have Papyrus on this slide. It might look cool to some people, but for people who struggle with dyslexia, it's super frustrating. And then just make sure you have adequate space between lines of text, between paragraphs of text. Images. If you can't see images and there's no text-based alternative, this content is inherently inaccessible to you. All images need alt text. Alt text is content that is normally hidden to most users, but gets read by assistive technologies like screen readers. Alt text is a short sentence that describes the image in context. For example, I gave the image on this slide, the Oregon Duck doing push-ups at Autzen Stadium. Depending on your procurement, you either need to make sure that existing content has alt text, or if this is a platform where people can author their own content, that it allows for and ideally mandates that people add alt text to their own uploaded media. If you have complex media like charts, infographics, they need to have fuller descriptions than what is afforded within the confines of alt text, so make sure any complex images have figures, captions, or links to detailed descriptions of their content. If your procurement involves videos, here's what you need to know. All videos must have captions and transcripts. Captions are the text that appears commonly in a black box when the video plays, describing the speech and important sounds on the video. Transcripts are basically the same thing. They're text-based printouts of all the sounds, but they're not synced to the video. Some services provide automated transcripts, and I want to emphasize these are insufficient. They're just not accurate enough to be considered accessible. Make sure that captions exist and that they are human reviewed, that they are accurate. You should avoid auto-playing videos. If they do exist, there must be a way to turn them off or to pause videos when they play. Lastly, make sure that no videos contain flashing lights. That's in excess of 3 hertz or 3 flashes per second, because this can trigger seizures in some people. If this is absolutely necessary, if you have content that requires flashing lights for some reason, then first there must be warnings before the video starts. The video may not autoplay at all, even if there's the option to turn the video off, and there must be an equivalent non-video based alternative. Keyboard navigation. Some people use the keyboard exclusively to navigate through digital content and services, so all the content and all the functionality must be available exclusively via keyboard. Using Tab to go forwards, Shift Tab to go backwards, Enter to select the active item, and Escape to back out. And sometimes the arrow keys, you should be able to access all the content on the page. Keyboard navigation only focuses on interactive elements like buttons, links, and form fields, not plain text and headings, but make sure you can hit all these interactive areas. When you cycle through the elements on the page, it should have a consistent visual focus, like the same colored box around the element that you're focusing on, so you know what will happen if you hit enter. Some areas that can be particularly problematic include navigation menus like dropdowns and forms, especially CAPTCHAs. Not only do you need to be able to hit every interactive element on the page with the keyboard, it also needs to be in a logical order. Now, there's some subjectivity here, but in general, that's left to right, top to bottom. If it's reasonably in the order you would expect to read this content, then it's good. Keyboard traps, that just means making sure there's nowhere you can get stuck using the keyboard. Like if you open up a menu and you need to use a mouse to get out of it, you can't navigate away from it using just a keyboard, then that's a keyboard trap. That's a deal breaker. The last quick note, these guidelines apply to all content, not just websites and web applications. So if your procurement involves PDFs, Word files, any kind of interactive interface for gamification, they all follow the same requirements. And that's it. So thank you for watching this video. I know I covered a lot very quickly, and please reach out if you have any questions. To reiterate, the main goal of this video is to help if you're purchasing a lower risk product or service, or to provide a high level understanding of accessibility requirements during the early evaluation of procurement options. We can and want to help you review the accessibility of different vendors. So if you want support, please email ictaccess@uoregon.edu, and we will be glad to set something up with you. All right, thanks again.